Interesting, because everyone is so quick to just like blame the right and say it's like only the right that has a problem with anything like this. It's not true, because most of the laws were actually passed under Barack Obama, and it was, I think it was Operation Chokehold. So it's like if you're in CBD, if you're in marijuana, and if you're in anything that is like sex work, so dancing, OnlyFans, porn, if they find out, certain banks find out, you don't have the right to bank, which is insane, because these are all legal industries. So it is not as simple as like, oh, it's just the Christians and the right. No. That's not it.
1000%.
It's a lot more complicated than that.
It's woven deeply into our society, regardless of what side you're on. That's the reality here, is like, it might be packaged, opinions might be packaged differently. You may hear different bullet points in the arguments of why it's bad, but there is no safe place. It's not like, hey, if you just lean left and hang out here for a while, you'll be protected. Hey, if you go to the right, there's a safe space there. No, there isn't. And that's the issue, right?
And
that's why we're fighting for
neither
decrim.
presidential candidate has spoken to sex work, like as it stands now.
No.
So
is it because it's too hard to regulate? So if you do, let's say we want to make it legal, is that opening the doors for more like marginalized people that have to do that? Like, they, in their mind, they think that's their only available opportunity for resources. Does that make them more vulnerable to pimps and like to like more of like that abusive side,
by
underbelly?
legalizing it?
No, by legalizing it, yeah, because now it's not regulated. So it's almost like, well, if I'm not gonna go to jail for pimping out and abusing these women, then I'm gonna do it out in the open.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in Amsterdam with Sexual Health Alliance, which is how I first was introduced to them this past summer. And I came into it being like, oh yeah, I know sex work, like North American sex work. And going there where it's legal and visiting the brothels in the red light district, it's very, very different. They said, they're like, no, we have all these measures in place to ensure that there's no trafficking happening. But most of the sex workers are in relationships, like, marriages, or have boyfriends, and they're the main breadwinners. So I'm like, how are we defining this then? And a lot of them are seeing 10 to 20 clients a day. They're making an average of, I think they make €50 per 15 minutes. The average appointment is 6 to 8 minutes. So this is vastly different than anything that high-end escorts or sex workers or content creators experience in North America. It's completely different. It's like, do you own the ranch, or you own the cow on the ranch? So to take that treatment into consideration and the hierarchy is very, very important. So yeah, legalization, you're right. It would all be in plain sight. It's like the hiding in plain sight phenomenon, right? Which is why decrim is so important. You could probably speak more to that.
Even in Canada, which is where I'm from, you're from as well, they have, the model that basically holds the buyer responsible. The buyer is the guilty. Yeah, the buyer's the guilty party, right? And that doesn't solve anything. There's also a no advertising. You can't advertise for services. Mind you, the worker is not guilty, is not held responsible in a transaction. Well, then you have to think about the buyer going into that situation and where those levels of anxiety are elevated to, and what kind of danger that could show up as.
Still pushes it underground.
Completely. And so that's not a solution. The solution is to have decrim. I mean, it's going to look like if the country keeps going the way it is, it'll probably be a state-by-state thing, right? As we know. I mean, it would be way too historic, though I dream of it, to be a federal law. It's not. It's just that's a big, big dream. It'll be a state-by-state, and decrim is what we're hoping for, right? That's the goal here.
Yeah.
No, that does make sense. I was watching like a Jillian Michaels interview, and she was talking about California because they kind of, in my opinion, like they kind of go too far in a lot of things, and it goes to it's like we're doing ourselves like such a disservice, because I don't know how to say it. It's like certain levels of shame or ridicule can be beneficial, right? They can be protective. And there's this woman, I follow a lot of her somatic work. She calls it like healthy shame versus toxic shame. And there are places for that. Like I don't want to walk over needles while I'm taking my kid to school. I don't want to have to explain why there's a half naked woman and a man standing next to her. So it seems like the way that California has gone is like all of it is okay, nothing is to be shamed, nothing is to be ridiculed, and it's like, no, things just need to be regulated, I think, or if it's like at a very baseline, decriminalized, and like consenting adults can do what they want. But my concern again is just protecting the women or like the performers in that space.